Today, I wanted to do a bit of a longer form video, and in this video, I wanted to share some of the key concepts I've come across when trying to come up with a catchy business name.
No, I'm not going to eat a bunch of drugs and sit out in the desert and hope some name randomly pops in my head.
Well, then I question your leadership. Richard, a name defines a company.
Now, for the most part, when you start a small business, you've already come up with an idea for a product to sell, and then you've got to come up with some kind of snappy business name. So there's 5 things I found when trying to find my business name. Number 1, it's original. Number 2, it's future-proof. Number 3, it's user-friendly. Number 4, it has to be available. And number 5, it's likable. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make it original. Now, that is incredibly hard to actually do. There are thousands of people coming up with businesses every single day, and there are just a whole bunch of people who have already registered web domains waiting for someone to come along and buy them. So this is an incredibly important step. As a new startup, your business name is quite important, I think. It's going to compel people to sit up and take notice. So the way I did it is basically consulted a whole bunch of options to work with. I started to explore keywords, and you can use free tools like Google Trends to kind of identify what people are currently searching for, or you can use some paid apps as well. I had a look through a whole bunch of books, including the dictionary for some inspiration, and I just started writing down words that resonated with me. And here's the thing, they didn't even have to be directly related to my business at this stage. I was literally just brainstorming words and ideas, and anywhere that those words could come from was good enough for me. So this was my starting point. I just had a whole bunch of word vomit on a page essentially. And from there, I went to my second consideration, which was making it future-proof. Now, I'm not sure which way my business is going to go. I've got some ideas, but I didn't want to register a company and then get halfway through my implementation plans, change trajectories, and have the business name fall apart because it was too specific for what I had thought was going to work, but actually turned out being completely wrong.
My advice to a small business owner or any entrepreneur would be not to be discouraged if the business you end up with is not the one you started out to pursue, because so often you encounter difficulties, you encounter failures, and the important piece is to learn from each of those very quickly and to pivot and to move on to the idea that works.
So when coming up with a business name, I didn't want to create a business name that sabotaged my ability to pivot or expand in the future, potentially limit what I was able to do. Now, I was fortunate enough to think about this early on. So again, I could get creative. I could reflect on what I thought the company was going to do, but then also try to identify ways that we could pivot or innovate in the future. Brought me to a really important point, which was to ultimately just keep it simple. I didn't want a big long name that was going to obscure the key message I was trying to produce. I just needed a really simple, catchy kind of phrase that was general enough to let me pivot the business or expand or take it anywhere I wanted. But when doing this, I thought about another key criteria, which was making it easy to spell, which brought me to step number 3, which is to make it really user-friendly. Now, I know people aren't generally great spellers, so I wanted something that they could type into Google and not get it too far wrong. So I started to impose some creative constraints. This basically means I wanted words with 1 or 2 syllables so that we could focus on really the kind of punchier ideas. Some examples of this that I really like are things like Squarespace, PayPal, Dropbox, or Shopify. So at this stage, you can ask some family and friends for a little bit of feedback. And this way they can quickly identify if your name perhaps has an unintended meaning, or if they just simply start hitting you with questions about what it means, what does this imply, then maybe you need to go back and rethink what message you're trying to communicate. This is also a good chance to think about how it might translate into another language. A lot of people perhaps don't think about international expansion at the beginning, but if you're going global on day 1, you need to think about what your business name might mean in many different languages. Number 4, and you'd be surprised how difficult this part is, but make sure it's available in some form. So you want to check the URL, obviously. A lot of the time for short words, a .com is going to cost you a significant amount of money that small businesses don't want to spend in the beginning. Now, the more creative you've been, the more dividends this step will pay, because it's more likely that the required URL is going to be be available, although it is often difficult to get a URL. So you want to go and check out some websites where you can see if URLs are available, such as GoDaddy or Google URLs. Now, if they are unavailable, which is probably highly likely, then you can always add some words to the beginning or end of your business name so that you can obtain a relevant URL.
It's made out to Pied Piper Incorporated. I checked with the Secretary of State website, and there's already a Pied Piper operating in California. So we need to change our name.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah, praise the Dark Lord. That's great news.
No, it's not great news. We love the name Pied Piper. It's a classic fairy tale.
Well, I looked it up. It's about a predatory flautist who murders children in a cave.
And now the second aspect of this is not just the URL, it's also social media handles. You can check Instagram pages to see if handles are available for the particular business name. And again, you can add a little bit of a change to these things to try and obtain one that's unique and original to you. And the last step, of course, after you've done all this, make sure you still like it. There's a lot of stuff and thought that goes into creating an original business name, but ultimately you're going to be working with this name for hopefully a very long time. So you want to have something that you really love and that you're really proud of. So don't stop for second best just because it's convenient. Really put the effort in to make sure you love it. Companies do rebrand and that's fine, but it costs time and it costs money. So this is the kind of thing that you can get right in the first instance for not a lot of cost, but a high amount of effort for a high return in the future. Okay, but you're saying, where do I even begin? Well, there are 6 kind of ways in general that you can categorize a business name. The first is acronyms and abbreviations. Examples of this are things like BMW, which is the Bavarian Motor Works, IBM, International Business Machines. Number 2 is use real people's names. Think of McDonald's, Herman Miller, Air Jordan, Adidas, Dyson. Number 3, you can be just matter of fact. This can include things like Dunkin' Donuts, Pizza Hut, DoorDash. Number 4, you can use compounds. So you can merge 2 words you love into a new word. So Airbnb, Froyo, Coinbase are all examples of this. Number 5, you can just make up a word. So Skype, Etsy, Häagen-Dazs are all just made up words. Number 6 is misspelled or missing vowels. So this is things like Lyft, Zero, or Reddit. So what really does this all boil down to? Well, we're looking for a name that perhaps evokes a feeling or sounds good or speaks to your audience. But most of all, the thing that I kept coming back to was I wanted a word that was just really memorable. So when I went to raise money from venture capitalists, they could kind of remember who I was and how it links to the business name. Hopefully this has been helpful. It's a bit of a longer form video. If you like this content on small business, let me know in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe, and I can try and make some more with you in the future.